Hello, this is Professor Vicki Angell, and today we are going to talk about in-text citation. One of my favorite topics, I have to say. And in-text citation goes hand in hand with all of the other things we have been talking about thus far in English 101. Thus far, we have been talking about research writing in general. Research writing is obviously a little different than some of the essays you may have written in the past. This is when you actually go out and you endeavor to find more information about a topic. That information you find, you may want to summarize or paraphrase or even by direct quote, use in your essay. All right, well, you also know that in order to do that and not plagiarize, a couple things have to be in place. The first thing, of course, is for you to use or you to create a works cited page. And on this works cited page, you will, in fact, list all the sources you turn to get information for an essay. Now, the second part of that is what we're going to discuss today. And it means it's a way for you to show the reader where in your essay specifically you are using a particular source. All right, and it would be a wonderful world indeed if you could just say in parentheses and put, yeah, I used this article or I used that article, but we know enough about MLA format at this point to understand that in fact that's not the way things work. You actually do have to follow certain rules and guidelines in order to do this properly. So let's go through exactly what MLA format is, how to use it, and where to use it. So the first thing I want to put out there for you is a basic definition of in-text citation, because it's just kind of a good idea to have that in place, and it might help clarify or make sure that you have a clear understanding of in-text citation. So my definition states that in-text citation is the method used to indicate where information from a particular source is used within a research essay. All right, so that in fact is a very concise definition. Now, you might want to take particular note of that because there could be a time in the not so distant future that I ask you what that definition is. So please be sure you do in fact know and understand that definition. The next question you may have if you're sitting in front of your computers right now or your iPads or your phones or however you're accessing this, you're probably thinking, why? Why, oh dear, why, right? You want to know why it is you have to do this. Well, I'll put the information up and I'll talk as you read it. The reason why is because you have to give credit. You have to give credit specifically. Okay, there's going to be more than one or two places in an essay where you're going to use information obtained from your sources. So in order to avoid plagiarism, you absolutely have to use in-text citation. And I will tell you that if I get an essay from a student and it does not have in-text citation, I'm upset. I'm deeply upset. And the student probably in turn will be upset because they'll probably not pass the essay. All right, very rarely, I think a couple times students have received a D when they did not use in-text citation, and that's a high grade. All right, bells go off in my head when I receive a research essay that does not have in-text citation in it, because frankly, it is plagiarism. All right, maybe it's unintentional, but it is plagiarism because you are utilizing and integrating information from sources, but you're not telling the reader that you're doing it. So the reader is under the assumption that all the information is your own, when in fact it is not. Just keep in mind, by the way, that all the information or all the sources that you list on a works cited page must be cited via in-text citation in an essay somewhere. They just have to be, because that's why they're on the list in the first place. If you have a source listed on your works cited page, it's my understanding that you somehow used it somewhere in that essay. So it's your job to show me where. Okay? One of the very first things I look at when I sit down to grade an essay is I look at the works cited page and then I flip through the essay. And why do I do that? I do that to make sure that each source on that works cited page is present somewhere. And of course, if it isn't, then I have to take off points. So this is basically what it is and why we use it. And so the next question has to be, well, how do you use it? There are three basic guidelines that we have for in-text citation. All right. First of all, I want you to keep in mind that all in-text citation information is placed in parentheses. Okay? Whatever the information is that you're going to use, you place it in parentheses. Okay? So what you want to do, how you want to determine what to put in those parentheses, first of all, is to look at the citation you created, the MLA formatted citation. Okay? And once you've done that, you want to look first to see if there is an author and a page number. If there is an author and a page number, then what you will put in those parentheses is the author's last name and the specific page number. So let's take a look at an example here. So we have a book by a gentleman named Nick Jans, and we know it's a book because we see that word print there. So the in-text citation for this source would be Jans and then the page number. All right, so it would look just as it does on your screen. Notice I've just arbitrarily picked 25, but it would in fact be Jans 25. Note that there is not a comma in between the two. Note that it's not the first name and the last name, it's just the last name. Okay, so that is your first rule. If in fact there is an author and a page number, use that information, the author's last name and that page number. The next rule says that if there is an author but no page number, simply use the author's last name. Okay, simply use the author's last name. And let's look at our example here. This is a web resource and there is no page. You look over the information, there is nothing there that would tell me that in fact there would be a page. So I would just put the author's last name in parentheses. Now I would like you to note that a lot of web resources do not have page numbers, okay? And there's, you may or may not have them. One of the things I will tell you that students tend to do is they tend to print out web resources and then count the pages manually and say, well, it's page 3 because I counted this is 1, 2, and 3. And that's not correct. The only time that a web resource will have a page number if it's something that's being published electronically and in some other medium or something like that. It'll be very obvious if in fact it does have a page number because it will be imprinted on the page as you're looking at it. Okay, but there are many times that there will not be page numbers. If in fact you do have an author though, you just use that author's last name. So that's the second rule. The third rule tells you that if a source does not have an author, and believe it or not, many online resources do not, then you will use the first 3 to 4 words of the title. You're going to put those in quotation marks, okay? That's what's going to appear in the parentheses. So let's look at our example here. This is just a very general source, all right? How to make vegetarian chili. So the proper in-text citation for this would appear as parenthesis, how to make vegetarian, okay? You have that in quotation marks, all that good stuff. Notice, guys, that I say 3 to 4 words. It's not an exact thing, all right? If there's a natural break, for instance, I could have just as easily put how to make vegetarian chili if I wanted to include all of it, all right? It really depends. The one thing to keep in mind here, sometimes how much information you include in in-text citation might be because of duplicate entries, all right? What does that mean? Well, maybe a couple of your sources have the first several words the same. What do you do in that instance? Well, you would just go far enough to differentiate. For instance, you may be doing research on a particular career. Say you're doing research on registered nursing, all right? And you have 2 articles, both with the same title, registered nurses. In order to use in-text citation for those sources, you would put that registered nurses in quotations and continue on in the source, whatever came next in the citation until something was different. That way the reader would be able to differentiate between the two. We will have a couple examples of these in class this week, so to kind of clarify that if it seems confusing to you. But those are the 3 basic general rules for in-text citation. So the final thing that you might be thinking about is, okay, well, where in my essay do I actually put this in-text citation? And how do you do it? Well, it's relatively simple, but you will fine-tune it as you write. All right? A lot of times students seem to use a lot of in-text citation. After every single fact from a source, for instance, they'll put that in-text citation. Now that's better than not putting any in-text citation. However, you don't have to do it after every time. All right? You will, in fact, be able to use in-text citation, for instance, once if the whole paragraph or a block of paragraphs are from the same source. That is actually much better. It doesn't interrupt the reader's flow as they're reading your essay. The only time when you really have to use in-text citation several times, for instance, in a singular paragraph, is if you have different pieces of information from different sources within the same paragraph. If that in fact is the case, then yeah, you do. You have to list the information from a source, use in-text citation, list the information from another source, use in-text citation, and so on. This is something that, like many aspects of writing, takes practice. All right? But if you understand the general idea that you place the in-text citation after the information is used in an essay, all right, and that you don't have to do it after every single sentence, that several sentences or a paragraph or even 2 paragraphs can be cited with one in-text citation, we can build on that. Okay? So what would I like you to do before you come into class? Well, I'd like you to practice what we just discussed. So please go to pages 737 and 738 in your textbook. Now these pages have a works cited page. And what I would like you to do is to use the rules. I would like you to use the rules that we just discussed and determine what the in-text citation is for each of the sources. All right? And we will go over this and discuss it when you come in this week. All right, so your takeaway. And reminding you, your takeaway is a way for you to understand what I want you to get from this presentation, what I want you to be prepared to give me when I give you our weekly quiz. All right? So I want you to be able to define in-text citation, and I also want you to be able to explain the 3 basic rules that we covered. All right? So if you can remember those 2 things or those bits of information from this lecture, I would think you would be in a good spot. All right, thanks, and you have a lovely day.